Everybody, the news and social media, it's all about, do we need a ballroom? But that's not the question. Then they want to talk about the legality of it. Can Trump do it? He can't. But that's not the question. The issue and the thing that I think everybody should be talking about here is the fact that this is being funded by private donors.
Matt GPT, I have a question. Can Donald Trump tear down the East Wing and let private donors pay for a ballroom?
Why did a secret group of billionaires pay to tear down the East Wing to build a ballroom? And why did the government go to court to make sure you never found out who they are? I got the contract. Here's what's in it. The entire fundraising operation runs through a contract between the White House, the National Park Service, and a nonprofit called the Trust for the National Mall. That contract was secret. The government never disclosed it. And what's in it is exactly what they don't want you to see. The contract explicitly shields donor identities. And here's the part that should make you angry. The conflict of interest review written into that contract covers the Park Service and the nonprofit, but it specifically excludes the White House, raising serious questions about transparency. Now think about what that means. Companies with billions in government contracts, Amazon, Lockheed Martin, Google, can write a check to the president's personal legacy project and nobody has to know. No disclosure, no scrutiny, no conflict of interest review. And here's the problem for Trump. Once you start pulling this thread, the names start coming out. And some of those names have a very specific problem. They've donated to the ballroom, and within days, they got something back. Now, the White House will tell you this is perfectly normal. They'll point to Jackie Kennedy using private donors to restore the White House. They'll point to the Washington Monument. But here's the difference. Jackie Kennedy restored furniture and artwork inside an existing building. The Washington Monument was authorized by Congress first. Private money came in after. Neither precedent involves a president demolishing a federal building without congressional approval and replacing it with new construction funded by anonymous donors who have business before his administration. But first, let's start with the basics. He can't do any of this. Congress controls federal spending. That's the appropriations clause. And Congress controls federal property, which means if you're building, demolishing, or altering something like the White House, the president doesn't get to decide that alone. Then there are the laws. Major changes triggered requirements under the National Historic Preservation Act and the National Environmental Policy Act, both requiring review before a project like this can move forward. And here's the key point. It doesn't matter who pays for it. You can't just take a billionaire's check and build something on federal property. That's not how federal law works. And that's where this stops being about architecture, because now the questions are obvious. Who are the donors? What do they want? What do they get? Here's one answer. A company donated $37 million in steel to the ballroom. When Trump announced it, nobody knew who the company was. 2 days later, the White House cut tariffs in half on automotive steel from one of their plants. That's just one transaction. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all ballroom donors were simultaneously involved in shaping the White House AI action plan. The same companies that wrote checks to the president's personal project were in the room helping write policy that directly affects their businesses. Whether they benefit is a question no one can answer, because the contract was designed to make sure you never found out who's paying or what they were promised. Maybe nothing improper happened, but the structure allows the question, and if you don't even know who's paying, you can't even begin to answer it. This isn't a ballroom, it's three-card Monte. Watch the hand talking about saving money, and you miss the hand where access is being sold. That's the game, and it's happening right in front of you.
Matt, the first thing that jumps out to me from that excellent backgrounder segment is this just rings of a certain kind of history. The same case of Roman elites financing monuments and games, bread and circuses, right? To display power while the institutions of government got weak. Emperors like Nero and Commodus, who became associated with spectacle and luxury and self-image, while the strain on the center of power mounted. You can draw the same parallel to Tsarist Russia, the same parallel to Haiti under Baby Doc Duvalier, who was eventually overthrown. So that's really the common theme. When you see a government that becomes solely devoted to the self-image of the leader, to aggrandizement and to enrichment, and dealing out favors, subtle hints, a flow of government funds to their favored friends, it seems to be a historic prescription for a mass revolt and the crumbling of that regime.
And the thing that I find so interesting about this story, and we've touched on the ballroom in previous episodes along the way, but everybody, the news and social media, it's all about, do we need a ballroom? But that's not the question. Then they want to talk about the legality of it. Can Trump do it? He can't. But that's not the question. The issue and the thing that I think everybody should be talking about here is the fact that this is being funded by private donors, being sold to everybody as, look at this, I'm saving government money. But the reality is we have laws against this to protect against corruption. This is a pay to play scheme. And so all these companies that are under government contract that are funding this, we don't know who's all being funded because the White House is not disclosing those donors. And now they're getting government contracts. They're enriching themselves off something. And that's only the things that we know. And so we have a government that is too big, too corrupt, and too controlled by special interests. And for my Republican friends, you may remember that because that's what we've said for decades. But what we're doing now is we have a corrupt president and a Congress that wants to look the other way.
I think that's the key insight of your look at the ballroom. The ballroom story isn't an opulence story. It's not a hubris story. This is a corruption story. And it really ties back to the conversation we had last week in my That's Bullshit series about the One Big Beautiful Bill. And the fact that we fundamentally agree that if you and I wanted to construct, as a Republican and a Democrat, a middle-class tax cut, we could do it in a way that's a lot leaner, that has a much bigger economic punch, much better for the middle class, much more efficient, much less waste. And instead, what Trump and the Republicans in Congress who were under his thumb did with his One Big Beautiful Bill was a massive $4.3 trillion giveaway to their wealthiest donors, $1 trillion going to the top 1%. Much of the rest of the tax giveaways going to extraordinarily wealthy corporations, all of which is essentially a payoff. That's really the story of this ballroom.
Yeah, and that's why, and I think people underestimate Trump in this way. That's why he talks about the opulence. He says it's private funds. And as we saw in this segment, that's three-card Monty. He has you talking about the opulence. He has you talking about the size. He has you talking about the need, but you ignore the corruption. You ignore the pay to play. And that's the real issue here. And that's the thing that has to be fixed.